Joining me now via Skype is energy consultant Sheson Okwade to discuss more on this. Good to have you join us on the breakfast show today, Sheson. Now, what do you make of this initiative now, this call for pending any bill so far for the next 2 months? Remember, we have an installed capacity of about 12,500 megawatts, and we're still relatively about 3,500 to 5,000. We have large issues around estimated billings and the unmetered populace, and then we're still dependent on gas and hydropower. How is this feasible when there are other bills to pay? Talking about our generation companies, discos and transmission companies.
Thank you very much, David. I think the bill being proposed by the House of Assembly, it's a very wonderful one. But I need to draw here on the business side. What is the stimulus that they are putting for the business? Considering the fact that the disco we're talking about is now being privately owned, and palliative measures are being given to businesses all over the world, even here. So in as much as we are putting into consideration the masses, we need to think about the business. Because after COVID-19, the post-COVID-19, what will be the state of the business of the disco? Is it that the government have actually put in place palliative measure to cushion the effect? Because as we speak, all the discos are trying their best to make sure that they redirect the supply from the commercial centers to residential so that people can enjoy certain things at home. And at the end of it, they have certain bills to pay to the market operators who have supplied them this supply, this power over time. So I feel in as much as they are considering the masses, what stimulus are they putting in place for the disco too, for the survival of the business? Considering the fact that they have bills to pay, they too have staff to pay. They have some other expenses to pay. We've been seeing their response to fault clearing. I got a call from a friend yesterday that it's quite interesting to hear that even on a Sunday that has never happened, they had fault on the transformer and the people were able to respond swiftly to that. So in as much as the House of Assembly are trying to put the human face to the masses, they should think about the business. Because after COVID-19, we are going to experience a serious economic downturn. And if the businesses are dead, then we'll only be putting certain things for the present, not considering the future.
Now, Sheson, before I let you go, let's also talk about, you made mention of the fact that transitioning, moving some of the load from the commercial and industrial areas to the residential segment, the provision of electricity. Now, in terms of this area as well, what sort of conversation do you expect will be ongoing to ensure that we have a smooth transition? Because across the value chain, there are a whole lot of issues here and there, and if not properly addressed, we would have another huge deficit, apart from power, financially, like you've mentioned.
Yeah, it's part of the things the disco actually needed to do is to make sure that they create relief for the people who are at home. So that, because as we speak, it's always 80-20 Pareto rule. Majority of the commercial are paying their bills. So they try as much as possible to give them supply so that they will be able to meet their responsibility even to the market operators. But as we speak, they've actually diverted it. But when we have post COVID-19, we're going to see a scenario that where people are enjoying supply at home now, we want continuation of it. And not until when we have situation where we up our game in the area of generation for us to sustain what we have. In as much as we know that there are certain infrastructure in place that are not being maximally used, there are so many infrastructure that requires replacement. I feel these are areas I expect the government to look into how we can actually revamp this sector.
Exactly.
In place are up, and I feel it's a we concentrate on.
Thank you very much so far for your contribution, Sheson. Well, joining me now at this time via Skype is energy consultant Sheson Okwade to discuss much more on this. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, Sheson. Now, talking about this electricity stimulus bill and the intention But let's now focus a little bit more. If passed, we would have it that 2 months Nigerians do not have to pay for electricity. But you have concerns here and there about the aftermath. After COVID-19, what would be the structure or the sustainable level of our discos, our generation companies, our transmission companies, especially with the debt crisis, and how the markets are likely going to be. So now, what is your expectation from government in terms of coordinated efforts and in terms of stakeholders' engagement at this point in time to fine-tune all details?
Thank you very much, David. I want to believe that in as much as the House of Assembly are planning stimulus for the masses, there is going to be an engagement with the stakeholders. Before now, we know that the distribution company has been finding it difficult to meet their obligation to the market operators. And if you look at the pattern of which they are raising their revenue, majority of this revenue come from the commercial area because majority of the residents keep saying that they have not been metered and the estimated billing they are paying, they cannot go ahead and pay for it. More so that the economy is really hard and the electricity you are talking of, they are not enjoying it, so they cannot pay. And here we are shifting base where we have granted the commercial aspect of it, focusing on the residential that have really not been paying too much of this electricity before now. I want to believe that the federal government, in their usual tradition, will give a shock to the distribution company for them to be able to meet up, because if they are unable to pay the market operators, they will not be able to take care of their payment to the genco, which in turn will create lapses and collapse the system. So in as much as they are preparing for an holiday for the masses, which is a very good one, at least to relieve us, because most people are not having any income, I feel that they should sustain the business of the disco by giving palliative measure to be able to take care of their staff and some of the operating costs.
Now, Sheson, let me have your last thoughts now. A complete slash, that means we are not paying any fees at all, which means we would have huge deficits. All Nigerians should be billed, but at a subsidized rate, or slash, we should have cuts in the amounts being charged on electricity bills. Your take?
Yeah, for me, David, I want to go on the route of saying, rather than saying 100% lockdown, it should be certain percentage. Considering the fact that petrol that we are talking of today, government reduced the price. They did not say we should go to filling station and get this petrol for free. In as much these two are in the energy sector, both the petroleum and the power supply. Both of them are in energy. They generate energy and they have things to sustain. So I would rather say that government to look for a way to subsidize rather than saying 100% knockoff, certain percentage, possibly 50% of the tariff you're paying, 40%, and they should just absorb the rest. The same way they are subsidizing petrol, they should be able to subsidize petrol so that the business can continue. Business continuity is the main thing and not just killing the business.
In the long term, we have to take necessary steps to ensure that we do the best, we make the best choices. Thank you very much for your contribution, Sheson Okwan.